The 2025 NBA season, a collision course of legacies, underdogs, and the rise of a new generation. From tip-off in October to the final buzzer of Game 7 in June, this is the 2025 NBA season in 10 minutes. The season began with noise. Boston raised their banner and were immediately favorites to win it all again. Milwaukee's new duo, Giannis and Dame, were finally healthy, hungry, and looking to dominate. The Denver Nuggets still had prime Nikola Jokic, and the young core of the Oklahoma City Thunder were finally looking to make their jump. Every contender had reloaded. The NBA was deep, maybe the deepest it's ever been. Meanwhile, in Cleveland, the Cavaliers came out to a 15-0 start. Only the third team in NBA history to do so, and talk began. Are they legit? In Oklahoma, the Thunder stormed out to a 20-5 start. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looked like a top 5 player. Chet Holmgren was finally healthy, and Jalen Williams made the leap. On the other hand, the Kings stumbled out the gate. Their big offseason signing in DeMar DeRozan just didn't seem to make the difference. In Orlando, Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner were showing that they could put the franchise on their back, but they would both go down with injuries and be out for some time. However, in Indiana, something no one saw was coming. Tyrese Halliburton was leading the Pacers to a top 3 seed by Thanksgiving. His passing wizardry and a fearless young core gave the East a new dark horse. Let's not forget about Anthony Edwards in the West. The Wolves quietly sat near the top of the West with the best defense in the league. Ant wasn't just talking, he was proving. He was one of the best 3-point shooters in the league this year. As we got further into the season, December brought chaos. The West was a complete war zone. The Rockets, Nuggets, Lakers, Mavs, Wolves, Clippers, all fighting for seeding, and seemingly every game counted. Jokic was playing like the best player in the league, which at this point is expected, but the Rockets were surprisingly sitting in the number 2 seed, in large part thanks to an Ime Udoka-led defense. Only the Thunder were sitting head and shoulders above the rest. Over in the East, it seemed like the New York Knicks offseason additions of Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns were paying off, as they would find themselves in a top 3 seed as well. But would they actually be considered a legitimate contender? Well, Jalen Brunson would go on to win Clutch Player of the Year if that answers the question. By January, the Thunder were major contenders, if not the favorites to win the West. The Bucks, they looked kind of shaky. Giannis was dominant and a legitimate MVP candidate, but injuries and consistent productivity from their core would hurt them. The Knicks surged with Jalen Brunson averaging 29 points per game, playing like a certified All-NBA guard. The Celtics were cruising as you would expect, but in the West, the Warriors were struggling. Without another dominant player, it seemed like 37-year-old Curry was being asked to carry a franchise on his back. They needed to make a move, and fast. Lucky for them, the NBA trade deadline was right around the corner.
Breaking news on SportsCenter this morning, the Lakers and Mavericks making it a blockbuster night.
Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. The 25-year-old Doncic arrived in Los Angeles last night.
It's the biggest shock that I've ever seen covering the NBA all of these years, guys.
I'm like, WTF? Is this real?
The 2025 trade deadline turned NBA media into a frenzy. Out of nowhere, 4 days before the trade deadline, the Dallas Mavericks would trade their young superstar Luka Doncic to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. There was uproar in Dallas. I mean, literally. Personally, I remember exactly where I was when I got the notification that Luka got traded. Why would they trade their face of the franchise, an obvious top 5 player, away? Questions. Well, anyways, now Luka gets to play with LeBron. As you would expect, they immediately became a favorite to win it all. Another move made right at the deadline would be Jimmy Butler arriving in San Francisco to send reinforcements to Steph Curry and the Warriors. And boy, would that help. In March, the MVP race was clearly between 2 players, Jokic and Shai. They would trade blows. Jokic would go for a 40-point triple-double, then Shai would go for 50. There was a stat that without Jokic on the floor, the Nuggets were the worst team in the league, ratings-wise and numerically, but with him on the floor, they would soar to first in the NBA. Talk about MVP. But on the other hand, it looked like Shai was going to lead the Thunder to a 70-win season while winning the scoring title, averaging 32 points a game. Well, the regular season would end with the Thunder having a dominant season, going 68-14. After the play-in, the first-round matchups were set, and as you would imagine, the Eastern Conference matchups were pretty much more than predictable. Except for the Pacers, who seemingly overachieved by once again eliminating the Bucks in 5, in large part thanks to Tyrese Halliburton's late-game heroics. However, the first round of the West had more of the marquee matchups. Aside from the Thunder vs Grizzlies, heading into each matchup, you can make an argument for either side coming out on top. The more surprising outcome was Anthony Edwards' Timberwolves eliminating Luka and LeBron's Lakers in 5. This was a shock considering many had the Lakers going to the West Finals at least. The other 2 first-round matchups between the Nuggets vs Clippers and Rockets vs Warriors both went to 7 games. In my opinion, that Nuggets vs Clippers series was the best series of the playoffs. It had game winners, nail biters, masterclasses, and Nikola Jokic. The Nuggets would come out on top, just like the Warriors, who would also win their first round matchup in 7. Now, onto the second round. Over in the East, it was Pacers vs Cavs and Celtics vs Knicks. The clear favorites were the Celtics and Cavs in their respective series, but boy was that wrong. The Pacers gentlemen swept the Cavs in 5, again thanks to some Tyrese Halliburton late game heroics, and if that wasn't shocking enough, the Knicks would defeat the reigning NBA champion Celtics in 6, and Jason Tatum would end up tearing his Achilles. Making comeback after comeback, back, this set up an Eastern Conference matchup featuring the Pacers and Knicks, which coming into the season, I can guarantee you no one saw that coming. Meanwhile, in the West, the two matchups were the Nuggets versus Thunder and the Warriors versus the Wolves. The Wolves beat the Warriors in 5 after Steph Curry got hurt in Game 1 that sidelined him for the rest of the series. The other matchup, on the other hand, went to 7 games. As you would expect from a playoff matchup featuring the two MVP frontrunners, the series went back and forth, ultimately coming down to a 7th game where the Thunder would handle business at home and move on to the Western Conference Finals to face the Minnesota Timberwolves. And in those West Finals, the Thunder would make quick work of the Wolves. After getting 40 apiece in Game 3, Oklahoma would go to close that series in 5. That was a really underwhelming series in my opinion. In the East Finals though, a lot of people would argue that it was a pick'em series. Neither was really the favorite, and for good reason. Neither team was even expected to be there in the first place. Well, the Indiana Pacers kept their clutch factor up in Game 1, where Tyrese Halliburton hit this shot.
He'll take it. He'll backpedal a 3 for the win, and goal!
That was one of the craziest shots I ever saw live in my life. But his foot wasn't on the line, and the game went to overtime in Madison Square Garden. But the Pacers would go on to win the game by 3, as the Knicks failed to tie the game with their last possession.
Out to Towns to tie. No!
The Pacers would also go on to take Game 2 in the Garden, and all of a sudden, things were not looking good for the Knicks, as the series shifted to Indiana. New York would go on to win Game 3 on the road, cutting the series lead in half. Up 2-1 at home, the Pacers had an opportunity to get to the near impossible to come back from 3-1 lead in Game 4, which they would win. At this point, everyone knew the series was over. The Knicks would win Game 5 at home, but Game 6 in Indiana, the Pacers knew it was closeout time and booked their ticket to the NBA Finals. This set up for a rather intriguing NBA Finals matchup. The Thunder were expected to be here, no one expected the Pacers to be here. So naturally, Oklahoma were the overwhelming favorites. And Game 1 seemed to prove that, as they would go up by 15 points in the 4th quarter. But as they did all playoffs, the Pacers somehow found themselves in a one-possession game with time winding down, and Tyrese Halliburton does this.
Looking. Halliburton driving. Pulls up. Jump shot. It's good! It's good!
His 3rd game winner of the playoffs. You can't even call it a fluke because it's been an ongoing theme this playoffs. Against the Bucks, against the Cavs, even against the Knicks, where he was a foot on the line away from having one of the coldest game winners of all time. Now all of a sudden, the narrative of the series shifted. Could the Pacers actually close out the Cinderella run against one of the best teams in the league? You would not be wrong to think it was possible. Both teams would go on to exchange haymakers. The Thunder would tie the series, then the Pacers would go up a game. A back and forth series ultimately leading up to the inevitable Game 7 in Oklahoma. Tyrese Halliburton came out on fire, looking like he was going to have a legacy-defining NBA Finals Game 7 performance. And then this happens.
Good contest from Dort. Halliburton falls down. He looks hurt.
He would tear his Achilles 7 minutes into the game. The Pacers did well to keep the game close for a while, but ultimately, their need of Halliburton showed, and the Thunder would go on to win Game 7, 103-91. Their first ever NBA Finals championship, and Shea won Finals MVP, regular season MVP, Western Conference Finals MVP, and the scoring title. Talk about dominant. That's the 2025 NBA season right there for you. If you like the video, make sure you leave a like, comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the season, or what was the most crazy part about the season. This is my first time ever trying something like this, so let me know if you like it or not. But I appreciate y'all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more content, you know? It's your boy Amir. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.